welcome to another episode of Just One More Fix. This is James. With me this episode is Lacey.
Hey.
You can find us online at justmonorefix.com or on Twitter at justmonorefix. If you like us, you can support us at Patreon, and you can give us a rating and a review at iTunes or wherever you find us at. In this episode, we're going to talk about Lacey's top 5 RPG blogs. And now, it's time to get our gaming fix.
I'm Willie D. Nelson from All Things Good and Nerdy, a pop culture podcast, part of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other tantalizingly geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Welcome to Just One More Fix. A couple quick announcements before we can get things rolling today. We are testing out a new recording setup that we're going to try out for our Night Witch's actual play. So if you notice that the audio quality is a little bit different or a little bit off, it's because we're testing out a different setup tonight. So if it doesn't work, well, sorry for the flub episode of the audio quality, but I think we should be okay, and we'll see where things go from here. So we just didn't want to record an entire session of Night Witches and end up with bad audio, because sometimes those are 4 or 5 hours of audio that we record. So the last time you're probably going to hear from us, HoosierCon is March 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, and we will be there, so hopefully we can see you guys there and do some gaming with you. In addition to that, I will be running Troubadours twice, and so if you're looking to get in on some Shakespearean disaster, PBTA madness.
I told you hot Shakespearean action.
Oh, my bad. Hot Shakespeare. If you're looking to get in on some hot Shakespearean action in 5 acts, then come on out to HoosierCon, and we hope to see you guys there. In getting things ready for HoosierCon, I finished the editing process for our playbooks for Troubadours, so pretty much have them finalized. There was about 4 of the different moves that I wasn't super happy with, and they have been changed and worked out. So I think we have a complete set of 6 playbooks now, and those will be going up to our Patreon. I'm going to upload those tomorrow, which would be March 13th. So if you want to check out our Troubadour playbooks, you can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/justonmorefix, and they'll be posted there. It'll be the updated ones along with all the play aids and all that kind of stuff. And then like I said, I'm running it twice at HoosierCon, so any adjustments that need to be made from those 2 playtests, which I'm not anticipating a whole lot, will be going up soon after that, and we're probably going to be moving forward with that project pretty quick. Yeah, should be awesome and a good time. Last announcement is we have scheduled our next Indie RPG Day, which is going to be March 31st from 2 to 6 at Game in Terre Haute on South 7th Street. We're going to be running I am going to be running Dogs in the Vineyard, and Lacey is running a Pip-Core system game that looks to be a lot of fun called
Neighborhood Watch.
There you go. So hopefully we'll see you guys there. Should be a good time, and play some small press RPGs with us. All right, so today we're going to talk about Lacey's 5 favorite blogs. So I am not very experienced in the world of RPG blogs. I just am not. I listen to a ton of podcasts, but I don't really do the blog thing very much. So this one is all Lacey, basically. How did you get on this blog quest?
Okay, so this is what happened. I finished school, step 1. Step 2, I have all this spare time now. Okay, so not really all that much spare time, but
right, more than needed before.
Some time on my hands. I wanted to do a blog for us and had absolutely no idea where to start. And so then I kind of thought, well, maybe I should see what other people are doing in the blog world and see what this blog game is all about. I actually checked out a book from the library about blogging previously, starting your own blog. I feel kind of lame for even admitting that. But, you know, yeah, I'm at the very tail end of the technology generation.
Right.
so, or is that the front end? I don't know. Anyway,
either way,
the wrong end for blogging, basically. Mm-hmm. So I decided I was going to read one blog every day for 4 weeks. And going through and counting the number of blogs that I visited, I came up with 29. If I'd have counted beforehand, I would have made it 30. Just like, that is secretly bothering me so very much that it's 29. But I feel like we could call it 30 because where I started in trying to find blogs was with a blog that I was already familiar with. So I went to one blog that I had visited before, but it was very heavily skewed to one specific game that I didn't play and like a campaign and that I just didn't really care about, honestly. Okay. So I went to Patrick Stewart's blog. False Machine is the name of his. And I had visited it a few times before, and I really like what he does, although sometimes I feel like I need to sit down and read it like 3 sentences at a time and then like, stop and think about all the information that has just been given to me, because he can be very technical in an awesome way, but in a way that I most certainly am not. So, and from there, there's, most people on their blog have a list of these are other links to more different blogs.
Right.
So I went down a...
rabbit hole of blogs?
Yes, a rabbit hole of blogs.
Right on.
And one blog led to 5 more blogs, which led to 5 more blogs. And then I Googled RPG blogs and surfed through a list of about 100 and just picked some randomly that sounded cool.
Right on.
And so there you go.
Like I said, I'm not a big blog person, so I have a list of questions to ask you about, sort of like before we jump into the actual specific blogs, right?
Right, because if I just tell you the top 5 at the beginning, then there's no need to continue listening.
I suppose. But I had some legitimate questions because I don't really,
Good. I'm just kidding.
So in general, what is it that you're actually looking for in a blog?
Okay. So I can tell you a couple of things. First of all, there are no strictly D&D blogs on my list because I don't play strictly D&D. So when it comes to role-playing advice, I was looking for things that are a little bit more universal as opposed to system-specific, because we play a lot of different games.
Right.
I wanted something that wasn't information that I could come up with on my own. So there were several blogs I looked at that had really good information if you've never role-played before or if you've never DM'd for anyone before.
Right.
But those are not what I want.
Right.
Like, I have been role-playing for a long time. I've DM'd plenty of games.
Right.
I need you to give me something that's going to be actually useful to me. General quality of, like, layout did factor in a little bit. I can tell you that none of the blogs, there's one pet peeve I found in looking through the 29 blogs, and none of them in my top 5 happen to have this, although it was not an exclusionary criteria.
Right.
Dates for posts.
You want them or don't?
I want them.
Okay.
Because if there's no date, I can't tell. Maybe you haven't put anything on here in the last 5 years.
Right.
How am I supposed to know? So that's an important layout feature to me. I want to know when you put this out so I can see how often you're updating things.
Right.
Because I'm not going to bother to follow you if your blog is dead and I just don't know about it because I came here later.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Those are the big ones, really. I kind of, in the 5 that I picked, they're all pretty different from each other. So, like, if I'm looking for, like, new monsters or something, or generic GM tips, or mechanic suggestions, they're all different in that way.
I don't know. All right, so you kind of mentioned some of these, but we don't play D&D 5e or 3e or any version of it. We do play some OSR games, though, quite a bit. Was system focus important to you? Not necessarily just 5e, but, like, whether that was Fate or Apocalypse World or like an OSR BX style game or something. Was any of that important?
Yes and no. So if your thing is entirely D&D focused and a lot of it is based on system as opposed to advice I could roll over. So if you want to create me a monster with stats that isn't in the monster manual or something like that.
Right.
That can be cool if you give me enough descriptive information that I can use it somewhere else.
Right.
Or like generic plot suggestions as opposed to super specific, like DM's Guild suggestions.
Right.
Roll with me a little better. So versatility is really more what I was looking for. I don't mind if you use a specific system in most cases, but I'd like to be able to use it in more than one instance.
So you already mentioned update frequency, and I had that as a question here, so you already kind of answered that one. And the not looking for sort of introductory RPG stuff, were any of them like story structure important or like genre focused, or was that a factor?
I don't know that any of them are really genre focused. I guess I probably leaned away from like high fantasy stuff. There was one I read, but where they outlined a kobold society. And it was a really interesting post, but I'm over kobolds for a while.
Right.
No, I know what you mean. The high fantasy stereotypical creatures. It was a different way to look at it, and I appreciated it, but, the post about vampires got me a lot more.
Right. Well, it's one of those things where I feel like our time with D&D style games has kind of come and went. Not that it's bad, it's just not for us.
It every once in a while, but
dip my toe in the water, but it's not my go-to, and it's not the game that I want to generally consistently play.
And for a lot of those too, it's kind of like that new GM thing. Most people I know kind of cut their teeth on D&D. Mm-hmm. So you're not giving me a whole lot that I haven't already played in or tested on my own.
Well, and then to be fair, it's the most popular game and most popular genre for RPGs. So it makes sense that it would have the most blogs as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not, we're sort of a niche within a niche within a niche within a niche now at this point. I guess the other one you kind of mentioned already with the Kobold thing, but were there ones that you were looking for that had like specific game ideas like, hey, I laid out this Cobalt Society for you, or I laid out this villain for you, sort of like little mini modules that they kind of laid out. Were any of them structured that way that you thought were, does it make sense?
I don't remember seeing any with whole modules. There were a lot of like plot hooks or like creature feature kind of things. Uh-huh. One of them is very map heavy.
Right.
But no like specific here's an adventure for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I didn't know. Well, that's I wasn't sure because, like I said, I don't really read a whole lot of blogs. There's a few of them I checked out. Like, I've gone to Patrick several times and looked at some of his stuff and just sort of floated around, but I don't really check any of them consistently to say that I have a very, educated or informed opinion about any of them.
Well,
so.
And some of them might have had adventures on there, but I didn't spend like hours on each one either, and going through like backlogs of posts.
Right.
It was sort of like clicking on 2 or 3 posts that looked the most interesting to me at the time.
Very good. All right, so do you want to start with these in no particular order?
I didn't rank them 1 to 5.
Okay,
just
right
so
on.
you know.
So. No, it's all good.
And I don't even know that I could.
Right.
So, one of my top 5 is a blog by Dyson Logos, and I think it's actually DysonLogosblog.com or Dyson Logos. We'll put the link up, but the name is in the DYSON. And so, I found the link to his from another blog, but I actually follow, I guess I'm assuming it's a him. Dyson just sort of sounds like a dude name to me. I guess I don't really know that for a fact.
Fair enough.
I follow this person on Twitter, and he does excellent drawings of maps. And so that's kind of why I followed it through. And there are a lot of really awesome maps and dungeons and things on his page. And that probably would have been enough for me. But then one of the first couple of posts that I looked at was a list, and he had decided that he was going to make an NPC or make it like a character for every RPG game that he owned. And the list was significant. And I recognized a kindred soul with probably even
games.
More books than we have. I was like, oh my gosh, that is a lot of characters. Right. And as someone who doesn't enjoy character creation, I don't know what would compel you to do that, but I found it fascinating.
Wow.
And so that kind of sealed the deal for me. But the maps are fantastic. So if you need a good source for dungeon crawl maps, this is the place to go for sure.
So the maps are mostly dungeon crawl, or they're world maps and stuff too? Or?
No, they're like, not like the squares,
Yeah, hex crawl stuff.
Well, it's not a hex, though.
But squares.
It's a square.
Right, yeah. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to show you one just so that you...
Okay.
So this is the Temple of the Seven Heretics.
All right, right on.
So there's a lot of content on his site that you can buy, too, because obviously he puts a lot of time into these. And he's, I know, done work for, several RPGs as well, like with the map making. But there's also a lot of free content to use on his blog, which is really awesome.
Right on.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Let's get this. Right on, yeah, there's a lot of really cool maps here. Easy, even if then each of them comes with some small couple paragraph blurb about sort of like what they are, and then if nothing else, it's something that you can use to sort of draw inspiration from for your own games as well, even if you just wanted to use the map alone. Right on. Very cool. So DysonLogos.com. All right, so what's the next one?
Okay, so the next one is Role-Playing Tips. Pretty generic sounding name. So this blog is by somebody named John 4.
Like the number 4?
Yeah, but John with 2 N's for flavor, I guess. So he is somebody that's been role-playing since like the 1980s, like current company.
Right.
Maybe not me, but close. Close to that.
Right.
And so he says he actually started this blog because he wanted to become a better GM, which sort of rang true with what we're doing here with the podcast. Yeah. And what I found there were generic GM tips that were useful to someone who's been GMing for a long time.
Oh,
so
right
they
on.
weren't like the basic peas and carrots of
Right.
game. Like, there was some more in-depth thought to them. And this has also been, like, this blog has been around for a significant amount of time.
Okay.
So, like, this one is, it's called an e-zine or whatever, but it's issue 467. So there's
dang.
some backlog there.
So this is like updated monthly or?
I think it's actually a couple of times a week.
Okay.
I want to say, maybe. These all say updated a couple of days ago.
It's all good either way.
Includes comments or something. Okay, so there is a whole series of what he titled Jailbreak. So part one
For the
is,
jailbreak scenario stuff.
jail design.
Yeah.
Part 2 is theme and atmosphere. Part 3 is it's all about the NPCs, and part 4 is plotting and encounter tips. The one I actually liked was that kind of caught my eye was the Pirate Queen's adventure checklist.
Okay.
And I just thought it was pretty neat. So so this one is like broken down into several pieces about like this this is actually by somebody else. So this blog must have like more than one writer. So this post was by Amy Driscoll. So this was like a step-by-step adventure creation framework for any session. So there's like information about basic plot structure, pace and tone, backwards and forwards links, which is kind of like where it sort of hooked me, because then she was talking about using things from previous campaigns to tie in your current adventure, and then thinking far enough ahead or like writing down things that were impactful to use in later adventures. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't know that was, I mean, like we've talked about that before, but I more than basic, simple stuff or whatever. And then some of the plot ideas that she mentioned I thought were like really cool. There's one about like a Zeppelin murder, and she talks about like 2 or 3 different things that you could find and other NPCs that were up to something that could like throw you, sort of that red herring thing.
Almost like a Clue kind of a game.
Yeah. But the examples that she came up with were really interesting and intriguing. They were not kobolds.
Right. Well, yeah, I hear you. I get it.
So I was pretty excited about that.
Right on.
But yeah, so it goes on, but so there's several writers on that one, and then I just thought the content was a little bit deeper and a little bit better than what I had seen on some more sort of basic sites.
Right. Fair enough. All right, so what's next?
Next is a page called the Indie RPG Bookshelf. And so this seems to be an actual retailer website. They have a shop on their website, and that's the primary page takes you there.
Right.
But if you go to the menu tab, there is a blog.
Okay.
And what I liked about this blog was that it was indie RPGs. And I was one of the only indie RPG focused blogs
Right on.
that I found that wasn't this indie RPG company.
Right.
Specifically about this company's
Yeah. That's what you're saying.
products. And they had an extensive list of interviews with creators about products that are already out and products that were coming out,
Okay.
which was really awesome.
Right. Yeah. Well, sometimes because there's so many games, it seems like no matter what we do, and maybe Gen Con is a bad example of this or whatever, but we'll go to Gen Con and we'll go to some of the different booths or whatever, or I'm scrolling through Kickstarter sometimes on a random search, and I'm like, how this game looks amazing, and then you pick it up and you look at it, and lo and behold, it was made 4 years ago, and it's sort of like, how did I miss this game? This game was made for me, you know? And there's several places you can go to kind of track that kind of stuff, and people where they promote Kickstarters, but there's things still fall between the cracks sometimes, right? So it's cool to see that there's someone specifically just targeting indie RPGs, because that's one of the things that really kind of got us started too, was wanting to grow games that, not to throw shade at Pathfinder and D&D, but they don't need any help. They're already huge and well established, and it's really cool to see other content creators helping to promote smaller press games, because like I said, Wizards and Paizo, they don't, like, they're doing fine, and it's great, and I'm glad they are, because the better they do is better for all of gaming, right? But that's just not my flavor. I'm a Baskin Robbins kind of a gamer, right? I want to go there and choose from my 31,000 different books that I have on the shelf for what I'm going to play this time, right? So, but unfortunately, gaming isn't very big, right? It's a niche, thing for tabletop RPGs. And then when you look at you cut that even smaller from, you cut D&D and Pathfinder, most of those style games off, well, you're left with almost, very few people really. So it's cool to see that there's somebody out there specifically targeting that. That was actually one of my things that I was curious about to see if you had a specific indie RPG one, or if they even existed. So,
and the other thing I'll say about this blog is obviously it's a business site, so
right?
It's laid out very well, like it's aesthetically pleasing.
Well, that's important because you want to have something that's easy to navigate, easy to read. How is your font choices? Do you have like green letters with a black background? I don't want to read that. It's going to give me a headache. I'll probably struggle to see the letters.
Call me shallow, but I don't want to look at your page if it looks like my MySpace account.
Circa 1997, right?
Right.
Was that no, MySpace wasn't a thing then.
That was like the 2000s.
Yeah. I was trying to think. I didn't have MySpace in school, so. Okay. Either way. Right on. Well, did they focus on any particular style of indie RPG, like PBTA games, or like Fate stuff, or just like a broad spectrum of everything?
I really think it was kind of a broad spectrum of everything. I mean, there are a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games, so I guess there might have been.
It's a pretty good saturation of them, so it makes sense that there's more of those. But
theirs is just kind of like maybe like a once a month interview, once every couple of months. So it's not updated super frequently, but it's still consistent. So this
still
one
live.
let's see, they interviewed Nathan D. Paletta about the Worldwide Wrestling RPG.
Yeah.
So is that one Powered by the Apocalypse?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I thought so. And then,
it's amazing because apparently, like, the way a wrestling match goes is exactly perfect for Powered by the Apocalypse. It truly is. It's like, I don't know which was made for which, whether it was, wrestling was made for PTA or the other way around, but.
Yeah, so this one is Bite Me.
Mm-hmm. It's a werewolf PBTA game.
Is it PBTA too?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it must have been the other thing she made that was GM-less, Lovecraft-esque.
Yes.
Previous, and that was a GM-less game. So, but they talk about both that new game and there's actually maybe even more in there about Lovecraft-esque. The occasional interview with RPG creators. And then they did one with, what's the mouse motorcycle game?
Mouse on Bikes? No, it's Kids on Bikes.
Heavy Metal Thunder Mouse.
That's right. I know the cover of it because it has all the.
And mouse.
It's got like a red thing on the side. And there's all the hard ass mice with their Saleh style biker helmets and their Harleys or whatever.
So a pretty good mix of creators
right
and different indie RPGs.
Very cool. Is that indierpgbookshelf.com or?
Yep. It's just rpgbookshelf.com.
rpgbookshelf.au. .com.
.com.au.
Oh, it's Australian then.
Yeah.
Oh, snappy doo! Friends from over the pond.
So,
right on. Very good. All right. So what's next?
Number 4, a blog full of demons.
Oh, right on.
By Mabel Harper.
Is that
who I feel like I have a current gaming crush on because I also gushed about her being part of the Demon Collective.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, right on. So they have a zine that's actually it just finished on Kickstarter, actually. Mm-hmm. So, which thank you for finishing because my inbox is ridiculously full.
And so I already knew that I liked her stuff anyway. But I hadn't been to the blog.
Right.
So I went, and it was awesome. And there was a breakdown about vampires in games that could honestly be used quite effectively in any OSR, D&D, BX type game, and could even be fun in really probably any game with vampires, honestly.
Right.
It went into different takes about the vampire, and I shared the sentiment of not a glittery, misunderstood teenage angst creature, but rather an
actual monster.
Yeah, an actual monster. And as one might expect from a blog called A Blog Full of Demons, there are lots of other horrible, wonderful creatures. That
right on.
So the one I went to is actually, it's a 4-part vampire blog series.
Okay,
about
very cool.
What she called Lamentations of the Vampire Princess.
Right on.
She does a lot of Lamentations of the Flame Princess based kind of OSR content. So lots of cool, terrible.
So is that when the Demon or is it the Hydra Collective or is it the Demon Collective?
I don't know what the Demon Collective.
Okay.
I thought you were referring to some sort of agency or group I wasn't aware of.
Yes.
Oh no. The zine. Yeah.
Right. So
Demon Collective.
Is it all of the Demon Collective part of that blog, or is it
No, this is just her blog.
Just her? And what's her name?
Mabel Harper.
Mabel Harper. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I remember. That's the vampire princess being the Sleeping Beauty.
Yep.
So that's such a cool, wicked ass, bad, terrible, evil idea. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So some of the other titles of the blog post, just to get you excited, are The White Moth, Its Majesty of Agony, Robots with Human Hair, The Valley of Bones, Where the Skinless Dwell, and then there's the 4-part vampire series, Two Horrible Imperial Beasts, which the picture looks like a regal slug with many eyes, kind of is what's going on there.
A regal slug. I like it.
It's an apt description if you see the picture. And she does a lot of art stuff too. So.
Right on. Well, and it's always cool to have good looking art on top of things because, well, it's just it's eye grabbing, and if you can produce that on your own, it makes things that much better. And
my last one is Failure Tolerated. And so that is by Sean McCoy. And he is the co-founder of Tuesday Night Games and the creator of the Mothership RPG.
Right.
Which is probably most recently famous for.
Right.
Because Mothership is the thing right now in certain circles.
Right.
So some of the stuff on this, well, not some of it, a lot of it is really good. Obviously, if you are into Mothership, there is a fair amount of Mothership content on this blog.
Right.
For obvious reasons. Small rant about investigation in RPGs. So this blog is very design heavy.
Yeah.
But not necessarily not like if you wanted to design your own RPG necessarily, although it would probably be good for that too. But I didn't read any of there are some specific posts about design choices for Mothership and things like that. But also if you wanted to get into sort of the DIY OSR version where you're kind of hacking and slashing systems to better suit your needs, this would be a great place to start if you weren't sure what you were doing with that.
Right.
So he has just a lot of really good ideas, and he kind of redesigns the investigative RPG and breaks down things to consider and sort of changing the way you look at how that's done. And the post was very interesting, even if you don't necessarily agree with everything he says.
Right.
Whatever. It was a different way of looking at it that I really appreciated.
Well, sometimes it's nice to look at those dissenting opinions on how to structure games, because it'll either do one of two things. It will, I guess one of three things maybe. One, it will either change your mind and realize there's a different way to do things than what I'm currently doing. It will make you realize that what you're doing works best for your table, and maybe it reinforces your opinion about what you're actually doing. Or the third option is maybe it spirals off some inspiration and creates a melding of the two ideas of what you already think, and incorporate some of the ideas that are already contained in the blog to sort of, make something even better maybe.
And I think that's kind of the sweet spot where it's oh, wait, I can do things my own way. Right. Well, I don't like these 5 things you said, but these 2 are really cool, so I'm going to incorporate them at my table. So then you end up with your own sort of best game.
So this is one I've actually looked at a couple times before, because I was looking at some layout things and I was trying to find... I'm in the process of putting together a couple different zines and stuff like that. So I was looking at some layout questions that I had for if there were sort of format standards and that kind of stuff for zines that exist that I didn't know about, because one of the things that I like to do, one of the things that I like to see in designs is that there are callbacks to things, if you notice, of where inspiration sources and that kind of stuff. So when you see the way an album cover sometimes is put together, it's a callback to a previous artist and that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And you can hear that in music and that kind of stuff, and you definitely see it in artwork. So it's one of those things that I like to see. I like to see that kind of stuff, and I like to do that because it's sort of like a little Easter egg for people that know about it, right? And there was a post on there that was really good about how they laid out Mothership and how they wanted to keep it very concise and see how much they could condense this down and make it useful and very concise and cut away all the fat. And if you haven't checked out Mothership, it's a really awesome thing. If you're into sci-fi alien style games or whatever, it works really well. It's easy to get up off the ground, and it's put together by the guys at Tuesday Night Games. And that layout post was very interesting because you could kind of look at the blog post and then look at the actual layout of the game itself too, because Mothership is only 44 pages. So it wasn't a huge thing to have to sort through, but you could kind of see where he was coming from with his discussion about layout and that kind of stuff. So I didn't actually look at any of the gaming posts. It was more that kind of stuff that I was looking at.
I really like the percentile system in that game, because I hadn't really played one since, like, the roll under percentile since Dark Heresy.
Dark Heresy.
That game is so clunky. It's great, but it's clunky.
Oh, that's one of the things that drove me away from it, in fact, is that Dark Heresy and that style of game, all the ones that came from that Only War and Death Watch and all those, the world of 40K is amazing, but the mechanics of the game just kind of put me off of it. And the same is true with Call of Cthulhu. I love Call of Cthulhu, but the percentile-based system it just bothers me sometimes because...
But I really like it in Mothership.
Yeah, well...
But it's simpler. It is a lot simpler.
But also it's not an investigation game. Necessarily. Do you know what I mean? You know, there could be investigative elements to it, but it's more of a horror discovery game as opposed to where Call of Cthulhu is the investigation is more important until you die.
I was comparing it to Warhammer.
Oh yeah. No, I think it's fair to compare both of them because they're both percentile based systems. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and it's. I really, really like it. And I kind of wish that there was a D20 version for fantasy stuff. It's actually something I thought about taking it and kind of breaking it apart for how it's kind of structured into our own thing in a similar sort of structure for a D20 based fantasy style game, where instead of rolling percentiles, you're just rolling a D20. And because
What if instead you did a percentile fantasy game?
But D20 is so evocative for D&D though, and I feel like you kind of have to have that. You know what I mean? Because every +1 you get is a +10 is a +5%, right? So the first column of skills in Mothership give you +10%, so you can just do a +2, and the third column is +3, and the fourth column is +4, and so on. You know, the math is really easy to convert over, and plus that you get the D20, which is what D&D and BX and all that stuff is all about. So you just got to have the D20, right? Otherwise, you're playing Warhammer Fantasy. So, just saying.
I liked Warhammer Fantasy better than D&D.
There are elements of it that I like more, but I would say that I like a OSR style game better than Warhammer Fantasy. Now, you played 3rd edition, Warhammer Fantasy 3rd edition, with the cards and stuff as opposed to the original.
Obviously, it's translatable, though, because I played mostly 3rd edition D&D.
True. Very true. All right, right on. So
I don't think that makes any difference.
Not to...
It seemed like it made sense.
But we digress about Mothership anyway. So is there anything else you want to mention about the blog, Failure Tolerated?
No, I think I'm good for that.
All right, so does that close it out there? Do you have any honorable mentions or anything else to...
I don't know, like, looking back at my top 5 list, I think it's cool that there's, like, a design blog, a sort of more monster blog, a map blog, a general tip blog, and an interview blog.
Right.
They're all very different from each other.
Well, I think that's one of the benefits of blogs is that just like podcasts, there are a gajillion podcasts out there, all with their own different flavor, all across different types of ideas or content or genres or whatever. And the same thing is true with blogs. And so that you can find one that sort of suits you. And also you can find one that's written by a person or a group of people that have similar creative styles and creative vision and voice as you, because that makes it a lot easier. Because sometimes you can find a blog and it could be great, but if their creative sensibilities are drastically different than yours, it's just never going to work. You know, like there might be some things to get from it, but if you find someone that is on kind of simpatico with your creative sensibilities, it makes everything that much easier, right? Mm-hmm. So basically we just need to make all horror RPG blogs, and then the world will be that much better.
Yes. No. So obviously I mentioned at the beginning, but the False Machine blog is really good.
Right.
So Patrick Stewart's brain sort of like just freaking blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, and that one's an interesting one because there's a lot of stuff on there that isn't necessarily like exactly game, like built for a game, but there's a lot of stuff on there that like is
literary stuff too.
Yeah, and inside of that is a lot of inspiration that you can gain for things that are game related. So one of the things that I have found as time has gone by is that less and less I go directly to gaming sources for things because I just, not that I'm above it or better than that, but it's just, I've been gaming for so long, I don't want to, it's hard to find things that interest me anymore. You know, you really got to have like a a different kind of voice to grab me now. So what I have found is that I go to different kinds of sources for different things that are not gaming related, but I can sort of bring them back into the gaming world with the inspiration that they're giving me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and Patrick's blog is a really good, solid example of that because, well, he's even said to us, he's kind of verbose sometimes, but there's just not much like what he puts out there. It's just very different. He has his own very individual take on things, which is very cool. So
I think it's good to find someone who thinks about things completely differently than you do. And, you know, to read and experience how they're looking at things.
Right.
Because it's never going to be your perspective. So
Right.
you're always going to learn something that you know, hadn't considered.
right along with that, when you have someone who looks at things in just a different way, some of the coolest moments in gaming that we've had at our table, or some of the best surprises, have been when whoever is running the game takes something that you see often and frequent enough, whether that's in stories or in the real world, that you are able to sort of put a weird twist and spin on it that no one saw coming because you just see things differently sometimes. And his blog is a great example of that. So
My other honorable mention goes to the Angry GM. I didn't include it it was one that I had circled, which was my method of going best of the best. But I kind of figured that most people that read blogs probably already knew about his blog because it's been around for quite some time.
right.
But he also gives interesting opinions on things and actually gives you an opinion. It's not like wishy-washy, and it's actually kind of snarky, as you would guess from the title, Angry GM.
Right.
So it's kind of like this sort of ranty blog, but it's not what I would say, like, it's not like he's rude or anything like that, like, oh, this sucks or whatever. It's more like, you know, hot take of blogs or something. I don't even know if that's a thing. But anyway, yeah. So funny, right? He's another one that I had already had his blog and checked in on it a few times before I really started on this mission, but I went back and revisited it, and it's just, it's well put together.
Right on.
I have one more fun fact.
What's that?
I learned a new term while I was doing this.
Okay.
So I looked for RPG blogs, right? And so in doing so, I got some video game blogs and things like that. And then I had this one that popped up that was like lit RPG blog. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Maybe it'll be like literature games.
Right.
Right? No. So apparently lit RPG is like kind of like Ready Player One. It's like books that are about characters that are playing inside a game. It's like a game within a game within a book.
Right.
And completely unrelated, actually, to tabletop RPGs. But I did not know that was a thing. And so I learned that on my journey.
Right on. It's like the full circle, right?
Yeah. But there's like a movement. It's kind of like a LARP, right? Like
Right.
Everybody in the tabletop RPG world likes LARP, but some people like both. This feels like one of those things.
Right on. All right. Well, do you have anything else to mention about gaming blogs or anything?
I guess my last thing, I didn't even know, like, if it bears mention. I'm going to say it because I put out a request on Twitter for people to recommend me blogs. And so Todd recommended the Karloff's blog, which I think is actually titled Ephemera, but the link is like karloff.blogspot or something. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
And it was really good. It was very heavily Knights Black Agents focused.
Oh, right on. Okay.
But that's the one I told you about before. So
I looked at it, I think, yeah.
Like the vampire on the boat and like the prized art and it gave like a lot of interesting plot hooks, which could definitely be relevant to other games too. But it was less versatile than some of the other ones that I ended up picking. But it was a very good blog.
Well, it could go into a World of Darkness thing, and really the Knights Black Agents sort of is World of Darknessy in its own way. It's got a very Hunter the Reckoning feel to it.
So, yeah, mostly I just wanted Todd to know that I did check out the blog, and I did read it, and it was very good.
Right on. Very good. All right, well...
I would like to say, if anybody didn't see my post and would like to recommend a blog, I will definitely check it out.
Right.
If there's something you're like, oh, I can't believe whatever blog that I read every other day didn't make this list. Well, I probably didn't know about it. So just send it to me and I will be happy to check it out.
I think that'll do it for us this week. If you like what we do here at Just One More Fix, you can always head over to patreon.com/JustOneMoreFix and support us there and help keep the show alive and help us produce more awesome content. Big shout out and thank you to our Patreon supporters, Tiziano Furlano, Simon McNair, Ellen White, and the OG Todd Olson. Hopefully we'll see you guys at HoosierCon or in one of our indie RPG days. And quick Gonna Geek promo for PopX Podcast, episode 89. Marvel Netflix discussion, Punisher Season 2, and Aquaman review, and more. Recovering from the holiday break, PopX makes its return in 2019 with a very hot topic concerning Marvel's departure from Netflix and the future of our beloved superheroes from the streaming platform. We offer insight to the future of Marvel's streaming sagas, as well as Season 2 of Punisher, and a review of Aquaman, and so much more. So you can check them out. That's the PopX Podcast, and you can find them on the Gonna Geek Network. I think that'll do it for us. Like Lacey mentioned, if you have any awesome blogs out there that you guys read or produce on your own, please feel free to drop us a line, and you can email me, James at Just One More Fix. We'd love to check those out. Or you can hit us up on Twitter at Just One More Fix with your blog, or you can head us over to Facebook and join us there for discussion of things and show any blogs that you guys check out there. All right, well, I suppose we will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening. This has been an episode of Just One More Fix. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find him at incompetech.com. You can support us at patreon.com/JustOneMoreFix or follow us on Twitter at Just One More Fix.